Don't shake it too hard, my brother sneered, jingling the shiny keys of a brand new BMW wrapped in a giant red bow. Wouldn't want your $2 to fall out. The laughter around the Christmas table felt like knives against my skin. My mother hid a smirk behind her wine glass. My father slapped the table, choking on his own pride, beaming at his golden boy. Me. I sat there with a cheap tin piggy bank in my lap, wrapped in dollar store paper, its hollow clink echoing louder than any insult. Hi everyone. My name is Elena Grace, I'm 28, and I learned that night that sometimes betrayal doesn't come with a knife. It comes wrapped in festive paper with a bow. I had been holding my breath through dinner, pretending not to notice the uneven weight of love at that table. My brother's gifts were always extravagant. Cars, houses, checks with too many zeros. Trinkets. Hand-me-downs. Excuses. But this Christmas, this one, cut different. Because it wasn't just a car. It was a public announcement. You are worth nothing compared to him. The sound of my father's voice still burns into my skull. Stand up, son. Let everyone see what success looks like. He kissed my brother's cheek, then raised his glass. To family. But I wasn't family in that moment. I was background noise, a placeholder, a shadow in their perfect holiday photo. My hands shook around the piggy bank. The cheap paint chipped under my thumb. I smiled politely, stood up and excused myself. No tears, no screaming. Just silence. Sometimes silence is the sharpest blade. I walked out into the cold night, snow crunching under my boots, breath fogging the air. The house behind me roared with laughter, music, clinking glasses. The sound of a family that never wanted me as I was. My car sat parked at the edge of the driveway, old and rusting, but it was mine. I slid in, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing tethering me to earth. By the time I reached the end of the road, my phone buzzed. A voicemail from my father. His voice, rough with arrogance. Return the BMW or we'll report it stolen. A smile ghosted across my lips. The fools hadn't realized. The car was in my name. And for the first time in years I felt the storm inside me shift. Their game wasn't theirs anymore. The snow kept falling, but so did my fear. Something else was rising instead. I sat in the dark car replaying that voicemail over and over. My father's tone wasn't worried, wasn't protective. It was a command. A threat. Like I was some thief instead of their daughter. My fingers clenched so tight around the steering wheel, the leather groaned. They thought the BMW was theirs. They thought everything was theirs. But the paperwork told a different story. Flashback burned in my mind. 2 weeks earlier. My brother parading around the dealership, pointing at the car like a king choosing his crown. This one, he declared, chest puffed out. Dad will handle the rest. But Dad wasn't the one who signed the dotted line. It was me. My father's credit was maxed, my brother's record a mess. They had used me again. My name. My clean slate. My quiet compliance. And I had signed, smiling politely, not knowing I was securing the one thing that would shift the balance of power. Back in the present, the snow piled on my windshield, melting into rivulets. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from my brother. Don't get any ideas. That car isn't yours. Hand it over before Dad calls the cops. My lips parted into a bitter laugh. Hand it over. Like I was some delivery girl, like my existence had been reduced to errands for their convenience. But not anymore. I drove back to my apartment. A tiny one-bedroom that smelled faintly of cinnamon from the candle I'd lit before dinner. I dropped the piggy bank on the counter. It rattled with its measly $2, and poured myself a glass of water. My reflection in the window startled me. Pale, tired, but with something new glinting in my eyes. Fire. That night I barely slept. The voicemail became my lullaby, the text my alarm clock. I dreamt of flashing police sirens, of being handcuffed for stealing something that was already mine. But under the fear, a thought grew stronger, louder. What if I didn't give it back? What if, for once, I kept what they tried to take? By morning I had an answer. The BMW sat gleaming outside the dealership where I'd arranged a meeting. Papers ready, keys in my bag. If my family wanted a war, I'd give them one. Not with fists, not with shouting, but with signatures. Because revenge, I realized, doesn't always come in fire. Sometimes it comes in ink. The dealership office smelled like leather and fresh coffee. The manager, a middle-aged man with thinning hair and a practiced smile, slid the papers across the desk. His eyes flicked to me with curiosity. So, you're the legal owner? Yes, I said firmly, placing my ID on the desk. Every document has my name. Not my father's. Not my brother's. Mine. The weight of those words steadied me. For once I wasn't just the background daughter. The invisible one. I was the one holding the pen, the one with leverage. The manager cleared his throat. Well, if you're sure, we can move forward. The market's good. You'll walk away with a clean check once it's processed. Not just paper but freedom. I thought about my brother polishing the hood like it was a trophy, about my father boasting to his drinking buddies. They thought it was theirs to flaunt. But legally it was never theirs at all. I signed the transfer with steady strokes, each letter carving away years of humiliation. Elena Grace. A name they had underestimated. A name now attached to their downfall. When I handed over the keys, a strange calmness washed over me. The car was gone, but in its place I had something far more valuable. Choice. I stepped outside, the winter air biting my cheeks, and pulled out my phone. 5 missed calls. 3 voicemails. 1 unread text from Dad. Where's the car? Don't test us, Elena. I almost pitied them. They had no idea that while they were busy mocking me over a $2 piggy bank, I was cashing out the very thing they worshipped. On my way home, I stopped at the bank and deposited the check. Watching the numbers appear on the screen, I felt my breath hitch. More money than they had ever trusted me with in my entire life. Money they would never see again. As I left, snowflakes caught in my hair. For the first time, they didn't feel cold. They felt like quiet applause. And deep inside, I knew I hadn't even started yet. By the time I reached my apartment, my phone was practically vibrating off the counter. I set it down and let it buzz. One call after another, like a swarm of wasps I refused to swat. I poured myself tea instead, listening to the quiet hiss of the kettle. That sound was mine. That peace was mine. Finally, I pressed play on the latest voicemail. My brother's voice, dripping with rage. Elena, you better fix this. Dad's furious. Mom's crying. Do you understand what you've done? This car was supposed to be mine. You're nothing without us, so don't act smart. Bring it back now. I laughed, soft, sharp, almost foreign in my own mouth. Nothing without them? Funny. Because right now they were the ones scrambling. I was the one holding the silence. The next call came from Dad. His voice wasn't just angry now, it was panicked. If you think selling that car makes you powerful, you're mistaken. That money belongs to this family. You're not entitled to it. Do the right thing before I make this very ugly. Ugly. The word lingered heavy. But hadn't it always been ugly? The favoritism, the insults, the way they paraded my brother like a golden calf while tossing me scraps? This wasn't new. It was just louder. That evening, I sat by the window with my tea, watching snow smear the city in silver. I thought of the piggy bank sitting on my counter. $2 rattling inside. That was their way of telling me my worth. But now my bank account sang a different song. The irony nearly made me choke. Still, I knew my silence couldn't last forever. They would come knocking. And when they did, I had to be ready, not with tears, not with apologies, but with proof. So I began collecting everything. Copies of the purchase agreement, the payment transfer, even the text from my brother claiming the car wasn't mine. Evidence of their entitlement, their arrogance, their blind underestimation of me. They thought they had raised a weak daughter. What they didn't realize was that humiliation had been my training ground. And now the storm they'd brewed all these years wasn't aimed at me anymore. It was aimed back at them. It didn't take long. By Sunday evening, a furious pounding rattled my apartment door. I didn't even need to look through the peephole to know who it was. Open this door, Elena. Dad's voice thundered through the hallway. We are not leaving until you fix this mess. Behind him, my brother's voice, sharp, entitled. She won't even look us in the eye. She knows she's wrong. Just wait until the cops get here. Cops. My chest tightened, but I reminded myself, I wasn't the criminal here. They were bluffing. They always bluffed. I opened the door just enough to meet their eyes. My brother looked red-faced and restless, bouncing on his heels like a spoiled child denied candy. Dad, on the other hand, wore his anger like armor, jaw clenched, eyes narrowed. Where's the car? He demanded. Gone, I said simply, steady as stone. My brother shoved forward. You had no right. Actually, I cut him off, holding up a folder of documents. I had every right. The title's in my name. The loan was approved in my name. And the check. I tapped my bag. Cleared this morning. All legal. All mine. For a moment, silence swallowed the hall. My brother blinked, stunned. Dad's face went crimson. You ungrateful little. He spat, but I didn't let him finish. No. What's ungrateful is years of treating me like the leftover child. What's ungrateful is mocking me with $2 piggy banks while handing him BMWs. I finally decided to stop playing my role in your little show. Their mouths opened but nothing came out. For the first time I watched their confidence falter, their power slip. Then I shut the door, calmly, deliberately, leaving them shouting at wood. Inside my hands trembled but my heart was steady. For once the silence belonged to me. The next morning I woke to a flood of notifications. My brother had plastered Facebook with half-truths and venom. Some people will steal from their own blood. Imagine selling your brother's gift out of jealousy. The comments were brutal. Family friends clucked their tongues, siding with him. Old neighbors chimed in. We always knew Elena was bitter. It was a digital trial and I was the defendant. For a second my throat closed with old shame, the kind they'd trained me to swallow since childhood. But then I remembered the folder of documents sitting on my desk. Facts, signatures, receipts. Truth. And truth had a funny way of cutting louder than gossip. I posted one picture. The dealership agreement with my name in bold. No caption. No explanation. Just proof. Within minutes, silence fell across the thread. The comments slowed then stopped. A few even switched sides. Wait? So it was hers all along? My brother's post disappeared an hour later. That evening Dad called again, his voice lower, controlled. You've embarrassed us, Elena. Do you understand how this looks? We raised you and this is how you repay us. The words stung but I let the pause linger before answering. Raised me? Or tolerated me until you needed my signature? There's a difference, Dad. On the other end he inhaled sharply. For once he had no rehearsed line, no thunder to throw. After the call ended, I sat in the quiet glow of my apartment, city lights flickering outside. I wasn't naive, I knew they weren't finished. My family never backed down easily. But the tide had shifted. And I wasn't the quiet shadow anymore. I was the storm they never saw coming. 2 days later a letter arrived. Formal, heavy with intimidation. A notice from my father's lawyer demanding I return the funds obtained from the unlawful sale of property gifted to my brother. I read it twice then laughed. A dry, bitter laugh that echoed through my tiny apartment. Unlawful? The documents on my desk told another story. I didn't steal. I didn't trick. I simply refused to be their pawn anymore. Still, I knew their tactic. Paperwork, threats, dragging me through court if they had to. They wanted to scare me into surrender. So I scheduled a meeting. Not with them, never again, but with my own lawyer. I slid the folder across his desk. Purchase agreement, financing approval, the bank deposit slip. His eyes skimmed each page and then he leaned back, smirking. Elena, this isn't just airtight, it's bulletproof. If they push this, they'll humiliate themselves in court. That night I slept deeper than I had in years. Because for once I wasn't reacting. I was preparing. The next weekend they tried one last stunt. Showing up at my building, this time with Mom in tow, tears streaking her face. Please, she whispered at my door, you're tearing this family apart. Just give the money back, Elena. I almost faltered. Almost. But then I remembered her smirk behind that wine glass on Christmas night. The way she had laughed when I unwrapped that piggy bank. The way she had let them humiliate me over and over. So I met her eyes, calm and steady. Family isn't about blood, Mom. It's about respect. And you made it clear where I stand in yours. Her tears froze midstream as I closed the door. Behind it, their voices rose again, angry, desperate, panicked. But inside my silence was louder. Because I knew the final move was coming. And it wouldn't be theirs to make. The final move came quietly, not with banging fists or angry voicemails, but with a notice in the mail. My lawyer had sent them a formal response. Concise, ruthless, undeniable. Every document attached, every signature highlighted, every truth sealed. The car was mine. The sale was mine. The money was mine. Days later, the silence was deafening. No more calls. No more threats. Just absence. For a family that once drowned me in noise, commands, insults, laughter at my expense. That silence was the sweetest music I'd ever heard. But the true justice didn't come from their silence. It came when I walked past the very dealership where the BMW once sat, gleaming like a monument to my brother's ego. Another family stood there now, their daughter running her hand across the hood of a car, her parents smiling, proud. A real gift. A real show of love. And I realized, I never wanted the BMW. I never wanted their approval. What I wanted was recognition, respect, something they were never capable of giving. So I built it for myself. With the money from the sale, I signed a lease for a better apartment, one with windows that faced the sunrise instead of brick walls. I invested the rest, little by little, into a life that finally felt like it belonged to me. On my counter, the piggy bank still sat, chipped and hollow, the $2 rattling inside. I never threw it away. It wasn't just a reminder of their cruelty, it was proof of my escape. Proof that I took the smallest insult and turned it into my greatest liberation. Sometimes revenge isn't about fire or fury. Sometimes it's as quiet as a pen scratching across paper, as steady as snow falling on a winter night. They gave me a piggy bank to mock my worth. I gave myself freedom. And that was worth more than any BMW.